Welcome back to the Pop Off PC Mag's Video Game Show. We now have Buzzy, Matt Buzzy.
Hello.
And
Hello.
Zach, you have a last name.
I do. Cuevas.
Yeah.
Oh, suspense is killing me.
We're back. We're talking about more kind of these E3, these fake E3s that we've been seeing across the past couple of days. These various summer game showcases that have had plenty of news, exciting announcements.
In composite, making up the Ghost of E3.
Yeah, sort of, yeah. That we've spent a lot of time watching and covering. So I guess kind of just starting at the beginning, I guess it's Summer Games Fest, right? That's Jeff Keighley's joint.
The weather's warm, the Keeleys are out, and it's summertime, yeah.
Yeah, so we're just kind of talking about what we saw and what were our thoughts, and just kind of throwing out get names of new video games and saying yay or nay.
Yeah.
Lego Horizon Adventures, nay or nay?
Yay.
Yeah.
I'm also kind of yay.
I'm. This is the most I've ever been interested in Horizon.
I was going to say, I don't think any of us are big Horizon fans.
Yeah. Those games are so ugly. For as technically impressive, they're very graphically impressive. I'm sure lots of money and human labor has been spent.
You don't like that art style at all, do you?
No, what do you? Oh man, what are they?
Bluetooth Flintstones.
Yeah.
If I could read from Video Game of the Year, if I could do a reading.
Oh, just a quick excerpt.
Real quick. Keep vamping.
So Lego version of that, right? Like the world making it. It looked like candy. I wanted to eat that game. It looks so good. People are saying it's pretty fun to play.
Lego games are generally good, but I was surprised that it's also coming to Switch, which is perfect. Melding.
Put a pin in that.
Oh.
I'm talking about just Sony games in general. Some star famous superheroes, while others take place in post-apocalyptic worlds where everyone looks like Flintstones cave people wearing Bluetooth headsets. And that's Horizon.
That's some real hater hours right there.
That's Horizon. But yes, the Lego stuff I feel really unifies the aesthetic.
Yeah.
It coming to Switch is really fascinating.
One of the first Sony throwing its brands.
Yeah,
right. MLB was the
MLB,
one that came out. But this is their first big IP.
Yeah, I mean, Guerrilla's working on it in tandem with
Studio Gabo or Gabo or something.
Gabo.
Yeah, I think so. Right?
Okay.
Gabo.
Making another joke.
Oh.
But yeah, I think that looks it's the most interesting I've been in a Horizon game. Also, I feel like just Lego recently has been doing some kind of cool moves since they haven't been as locked into Traveler's Tales, who had done all their games previously.
Yeah, that's right.
And like kind of destroyed themselves on that last Lego Star Wars game.
Yeah.
We should have seen this coming. There was a Horizon Lego set last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, with this
Hey,
big
there's a
draft
Zelda Lego set.
Could be next.
Maybe that's it. Yeah. Maybe that's the one.
So yeah, that's like a neat, unexpected one of all those games.
It's a game coming out this holiday. I mean, that and Astrobot. It's interesting that Sony's holiday this year is kind of a bit more family friendly.
Yes.
They had Astrobot, not at Summer Games Fest, but at their State of Play, kind of at the same time period.
Well, it's interesting because Horizon isn't exactly a family-friendly game, but
it is if you make them Legos.
Well, right, exactly. And you think of Sony's stock of characters, and there's not many that are family-friendly.
Anymore. They took
exactly.
Kratos, Lego Kratos.
Yeah,
Lego
you
Bloodborne.
You can have Lego God War, Lego Last of Us.
I mean, that's the thing in that Astrobot game. He's wearing costumes of these various PlayStation characters. So like Astrobot, Bloodborne Man, and stuff.
And those are cute. People like that. And I mean, I don't want to get into it, but I do think that game is good. The pack-in for the PS5.
It's good.
It's good.
It's capital G good.
Yeah. It is good.
It is good.
Maybe even great.
Maybe even great. Is there something here?
If there's any chance to prove it, it's with now them being able to make a big full release.
Right.
So that's exciting for them. Keighley at Summer Games Fest even mentioned all the layoffs and how the show would be maybe lighter than we were expecting and have a lot of indie stuff. And that's cool.
I still had fun with it. I still thought it was
the quality of the announcements wasn't like blowing me away, which was not. He did kind of warn us, which is if even he's saying that, then it's you didn't expect too much, but there were some interesting.
All about to say the other kind of big game I have here for Summer Games Fest specifically was Civilization 7.
Yeah,
they brought out Sid
which
Meier.
leaked right before.
Yeah,
unfortunately, it did take a little bit of the hype out of it. It did leak online. Somebody changed a website banner by accident and really, oops,
caught Sid Meier on the street. Be like, is there Civ 7? He's like, yeah.
He's like, yeah, oops.
Thank God it's Civ 7 and not Borderlands 4.
Yeah, there was a lot of disappointed fans online. I'm sorry. Civ's probably one of the franchises I've played the longest in my life, so I'm very hyped for it. Civ 6 was like 2016. It's been a minute.
Yeah. So what do you hype for in Civ 7?
I don't know. The thing is with Civ, number one, they make a distinction to kind of make every game, there's a core system or something that's kind of different in every one of the games. So you don't always just get this is a better version or there's more features necessarily. They change their angle and approach to like the economy or what systems are the most important in that game. And then number two, those games really grow and change a lot post-launch. Like there's big expansions that make what were fundamentally like decent Civ games into like great ones. So it'll be a long road seeing how good Civ 7 is. It's not one of those things that's immediate, but from the stylization, it looks kind of more modern.
Okay.
The text and the logo.
It's also coming out on consoles, like it's
Yeah,
simultaneously.
day and date,
on consoles.
including
It's a big
Switch.
deal.
Which is I mean, kudos to them for doing that day same day, but definitely more of a PC game.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, I guess
but I am curious
Because there were console exclusive like Civ versions.
Yeah, like mobile versions and
there was
whatnot.
a Switch version of Civ
Yeah.
6.
Civ
Well, no,
Revolution.
that was the full fat version.
I think
There
you're
was,
thinking
like,
Civ Revolution or
yes,
something.
Right,
yeah.
which were like kind of they were dumbed down console versions or mobile versions.
Yeah, I think they have a gameplay reveal coming up in the next couple of weeks
yeah,
or so,
next month
so we'll
maybe,
see
yeah.
more there.
Yeah.
So anything, I guess, from Summer Games Fest itself, or should we move on to some of these other shows?
I mean, the Street Fighter DLC, I'm excited about that. I hope that the characters come out.
Punished hobo amnesiac Bison
Yeah,
is
right.
very funny to me.
To pair with.
Is that Mr. Bison?
Is that Mike Bison? Remember, that's why he's
That's
called
why
that
he's named
even.
that,
Yeah, but I'm excited
yeah.
about that and the crossover characters.
Terry Bogard.
Yeah,
Yep,
and May. So SNK crossover, excited about
That
that.
was a bit of a fever dream of a trailer. It was
Yeah,
like,
I
it's
thought it
Street
was
Fighter, right?
I thought it was gonna be
Yeah.
Capcom vs SNK 3. So
good fighting game stuff. But
yeah, Jeff wrote an article about that angle, specifically the SNK stuff. So you can read that on PCMagazine.com.
shout out to Jeff Wilson.
Yep. So that's Summer Games Fest itself.
Yeah, but
but
the
we
big
had we had more shows come out after that. Do you want to just start with the big one, or we
The
want to
big one is the Xbox. I think we should jump right into that one.
We sat at this very table earlier this year talking about how doomed that company seems, and that's probably still the truth.
Yeah.
But they've been working on so many big games for so long now that eventually they were going to start coming out.
If you buy so many studios,
Yeah.
eventually, surely a game's
I,
gonna
for
come
one,
out
did
of it.
not. The last thing I expected from Xbox was games.
Really blowing everyone's socks off by releasing games for the console.
but they had
we jest,
some.
but like seriously, all these closures, the disappointments,
Yeah.
the tenor around that company's been so negative as far as
and
the gaming
and
space is
and,
concerned.
and that cloud hangs over all these announcements because despite some of this stuff looking really great and having release dates and windows, there still is this feeling of like
They'll get those games out and then they'll be closed.
and then they might be closed.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
never know. So it's a little, it's weird to be
So-
celebratory. But putting that aside, there
There's
were
some
more
cool-looking
good-looking
games.
stuff
No,
than we
yes,
thought.
There's some
Good
cool looking
stuff.
games. It's my show, so we're starting with Doom: The Dark Ages,
that's what they started with too.
coming out in 2025.
They gave him a cape
They gave
and
him
a
a cape.
shield.
They gave him a cape.
Doom Eternal, while not as good as Doom 2016, which is like a top 10 game of the decade for me, I still think it's very good.
Yeah, no, totally.
They just overcomplicated it a bit. And if anything, they're like the sort of medieval stuff in that game I thought was kind of jarring because there's just kind of weird little pieces of it.
Yeah.
Of like he's hanging out with like a wolf spirit.
So at least they're leaning in now.
Yeah, now they're like
Yeah.
really leaning into that. I like that. I like how it really differentiates it. I like that he has a cape. The weapons now also seem very different. He has like a thing that grinds. He puts a skull,
skull that
in a
grinds. Yeah,
thing
that
and
was
grinds
cool.
it up
Wow.
and shoots it out.
And the shield, that was really cool.
yeah, he's
too.
got a mace.
Did you get a sense from the gameplay that I didn't play much Eternal that it looks more up that alley, or it's going to be somewhere in between? Because like the sort of like rock paper scissors ammo cycle stuff in
Yeah.
Eternal is what put a lot of people off. I don't know if you could tell if it was more like
my
2016
my
or that.
suspicion and hope is that they've actually really rethought it all. Because in Eternal, they were kind of adding those systems on top of 2016. I
Yeah.
think they overcomplicated it. I think they overcomplicated it. That kind of chewed on that word, I think. With this, I think they've really gone back and rethought all of it to fit this kind of prequel setting. Like this whole, that whole gun shred, that skull shredding gun.
What can we do to make
The-
these mechanics fit the theme in
Yeah.
a cool way rather than
more the shield, the more melee
mechanics.
stuff.
Well, you know what?
Yeah.
I actually the open environments read like Serious Sam to me, and I know that might be
Okay,
a
another
weird-
boomer shooter.
Oh yeah, but like it,
oh this guy.
Yeah. No, but it's
I'm
true.
young,
I mean, yeah.
I swear.
Yeah, we're like all literally the same age. If anything,
but-
you're the
Quiet, old
oldest.
man.
But no, seriously, like the open environments and just like tons of enemies running at you with that. I think throwing on that graphic fidelity that Doom is known for.
Yeah.
Give them outrageous weapons, let them ride a horse, give them big environments to run through and lots of enemies to shoot. I think that's the core of Doom. Right?
Yeah.
And so in that case, I think that they're sticking to their 2016 roots and just expanding on that. And if they did that, I would be happy with that.
My fear is that if they have a lot more melee stuff in it, that they will take a lot of like Souls inspiration.
Oh gosh.
That's kind of my fear. But
We'll
you know,
see what it looks like. Everyone will give it a chance at minimum because
Yeah.
those games
Because it's on Game Pass.
those games play well. Well,
it's on,
yeah.
it's on Game Pass. It's also coming to PS5. They,
Yeah,
they
that's a big
date,
one,
They
that's a big
confirm
one.
that. That's next year. That's Doom.
Yeah.
Um,
That's the 5th game on Xbox's cross-platform journey. Right?
Yes, yeah.
Yep.
So that's mine. That's my favorite thing I saw. But if someone wants to throw out another thing that they were excited about at Xbox, there's a lot to choose from.
There's two. I'll combine these into two since we didn't see a lot of gameplay at the show.
Okay.
And they both fall into the same bucket for me. Big franchises returning with a question mark over their head: Fable and Dragon Age.
Okay.
Similar.
Good. I have nothing to say about either of them. So there you go. There you go.
Well, Dragon Age does have a date. It's it's coming out this year.
Yeah.
Right. It's real. It's the most
and
real.
we did see gameplay, and we did see gameplay after the show.
Yeah.
The tone of that gameplay trailer put a lot of the Dragon Age game intro trailer put a lot of people off. It was like kind of jokey. It was like the D&D movie kind of humor, which is a good movie, but like. Yeah, it was just like, this isn't really very Dragon Age.
Yeah, especially considering you've been waiting, what, 10 years?
This game was supposedly coming out this year for like a long time. We'd seen nothing of it still. Yeah. And the first thing was kind of like it felt like a video you'd release after, like, these are your companions. Isn't that fun? Like, oh, okay. And then like, but people were like, So then I think kind of a little bit in response, they showed a clip and then they're like, in a few days, we're going to have, a stream of gameplay. Don't worry. Yeah. And that looked more in the tone you'd expect. It's also kind of distinctive art style that I don't know if everyone's going to love.
Dragon Age, the Veil Guard.
Yeah, the Veil Guard, which changed the name
from Dreadwolf.
Shortly before the show, they changed the name.
I was confused. And I thought it was like, is this some other weird thing they're doing?
Spin-off or something.
This is the hero shooter, actually.
Yeah.
The actual gameplay looked a little more in tone with what you'd expect, a little grittier, a little more realistic looking. It is definitely like an action game now, though.
Yeah.
They have stopped even pretending that they're kind of doing the tactical, which really only Dragon Age Origins, and a lot of people, that's the favorite, that's what started it, so in a lot of people's minds, that's what the series has to be in perpetuity. Mm-hmm. They clearly don't agree. They're going with the trends. They want a faster game. For better or worse, I don't know if it'll play like a Dragon Age or feel like a Dragon Age or just be a good game that happened to kind of change the genre a good amount. But it looks like an action game. It's pretty fast paced and some cool effects and stuff. So that game I hope it's good. It's just a huge question mark.
I'm willing to give it a chance.
Yeah.
It doesn't look terrible, and I have no say in Dragon Age.
Yeah, I've played them, and so
it's elves
see.
And whatnot. So,
Fable. Speaking of fantasy nonsense, that was all mostly pre-rendered. There was some stuff kind of woven into the trailer that was walking through a city or in a conversation. It was a little hard to discern what was like
in Fable,
canned,
right?
Yeah, what was canned and what was gameplay. But I think the tone of the reveal
it's very British, which is those names are supposed to be.
Very British.
Yeah, it's got I keep being afraid that Ricky Gervais will pop up in that game with his energy. Mm-hmm. But it's who's the actor? It's like Richard Adeoye.
Yeah, it was in the first trailer. That was a funny trailer. The second one was pretty good.
I like him.
So I think it's very funny that Playground is making
the most
the Forza people.
Yeah. Forza Horizon are the only Forzas that matter.
Thing they've made. That's literally. It's not even like they have experience doing X, Y, Z. They've only made the Forza Horizon games.
So that's cool for them to see them branch out.
They make good games and they ship and finish games.
There you go. That's what Xbox needs right now.
Exactly.
So they put 2025 on that as a vague window.
Yeah. So we'll see if we get like a real gameplay dump. But I think the tone and kind of style. I'm a little optimistic that this reboot of Fable will be successful. But we'll see.
Gotcha.
What do you want to talk
about?
Two, probably that they don't have release windows at all, but Gears of War,
E-Day,
and Perfect Dark. We've heard a lot of bad news.
Right, they've had to rope in new support teams on it and stuff, like Crystal Dynamics, I think.
Yes, and it turns out that it's real. Or mostly real. I'm pretty sure none of that was gameplay in the trailer, or if there was, it was maybe like very woven in.
I think it looked real to me. It looked pretty real. It looked like Deus Ex to me.
You think it was in engine, but like kind of canned?
I think so. I think it was in engine, and they threw a UI.
It was hard to tell because it's very linear. Like she's like running and then jumping and grabbing like a drain pipe and climbing. I was like,
whoa, wait a minute.
They're thinking fake HUD stuff.
Yeah. That's what I suspect. But I do think it's cool. And it's weird that like Perfect Dark. I mean, I like Perfect Dark on the 64. I even like Perfect Dark Zero, but this one actually looks pretty cool. And it's nice to see Xbox acknowledging these dormant Rare franchises, making good on their investment.
Yeah.
But Gears was pretty exciting for me. I'm a big Gears of War
Gears of War prequel.
Yes.
E-Day, Emergence Day, I think is what it is. Yeah.
And
Gears of War 5 famously ended on a big cliffhanger.
Put a pin in that. We'll be back.
I do really like that they just said like screw it.
Whatever. We'll cross that bridge.
And honestly, I mean, maybe this is unpopular. I didn't really like Gears of War 4 or 5 story because it tried to tell a story. I don't feel like Gears of War is.
They've always been kind of weirdly into their lore, though.
They're into
about being soulful, about these tree trunk men.
Right, but they're tree trunk men at the end of the day. When you remove the tree trunks from the game,
Yeah, it's just a bunch of stumps.
it's just a bunch of stumps.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we're getting back to what matters. What you're saying? We're going to
Yes,
Marcus Phoenix,
and-
the origin
yeah,
of his
Marcus,
bandana,
him
gonna
saying,
pick
"Ah,
up
come on."
the Lancer. Yeah, and I hope
He's gonna
that,
pick that first one up, and it's gonna be like an MCU shot, like the first chainsaw. You're like, yep.
or
there
his
it is.
bandana when he wraps it on, like
Yep,
the superhero
yep.
shot. But yeah, they got Dom back. I wonder if Bender is going to be back to voice Marcus. I hope so.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. But that both of those games, Perfect Dark ? Gears 2025. So looking forward to both. Just to sneak this one in, the Bayou game.
Oh, South of Midnight.
Yeah,
From the people who
I
did
thought that was
looked
interesting.
cool.
That looked cool.
Those are the people who did We Happy Few,
Yes,
which was
yeah,
the whole
yeah.
thing because the trailer was a bit misleading.
But also interesting art style.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this one has like as a bit of like a stop motion-ish
Yeah.
thing kind of going on.
I dug that. I dug the look.
Yeah.
It looked like gameplay wise, it kind of reminded me of that Kena Bridge of Spirits
Oh, sure.
game,
Yeah.
or
Like an
something
action
that.
adventure sort of
Yeah.
lightly RPG-ish thing.
Very
yeah.
linear, which I have no problem with, and if the art style carries through, I
There's a
mean,
talking alligator. It's
Yeah.
very, just the southern swamp. It's just a cool, it's an environment we don't see too often.
Xbox could and should build their brand on games like that. Hi-Fi Rush was a beautiful game.
Yep.
And then
I would love them to explain the fundamentals of why a game like Hi-Fi Rush.
Still a little sore.
Yeah,
Oh,
I don't know.
I mean,
don't
there's still the
know.
idea that it might come out on Switch this year after the company got
I
demolished.
do believe the Direct will bring us that.
So, Xbox still mixed overall, but these games look cool.
Yeah,
I agree these games look cool.
and there's like a dozen more.
Yeah,
there was a
ton.
couple. There was a.
I mean, Call of Duty 6,
Yeah.
Call of Duty Black Ops 6
yeah,
is
that
day and
kinda
date on
big- that
Game
kinda big-
Pass.
Was that Call of Duty 22 or something?
Yep.
We don't have time to figure that out right
don't
now.
ask me. Avowed they showed more of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indiana
Well,
Jones
Indiana
and the Great
Jones,
Circle.
yeah,
really good. Indiana Jones got a lot of showtime.
Yeah.
Avowed looked pretty good. Still, I think Obsidian's gonna make probably a good story, but
I agree.
first person like platforming and puzzle stuff.
Also, Age of Mythology.
Oh, yes,
Oh
that's
yeah,
worth
huge
mentioning.
Age
Yep.
of Mythology
Yep.
fan. I played that game a lot.
Yeah.
Like I could tell you the characters' names and campaign. Like I remember all that stuff still. So like this kind of remake remaster combination looks
All
really,
good, all
looks
good.
really good. That game I'm forgetting the name of. Something 33.
Oh,
Oh,
yes. I know what you're talking
Expedition
about.
33.
Yes.
Did RPG, yeah.
Yeah, I
I
was
feel like everyone had
everyone-
the
yeah.
same feeling. They
It
were
was
like,
like, this
whatever,
looks
whatever. And then it
fine.
was a turn-based game, and they
They
were
were
like,
like-
wait a second.
Like that means. Yeah, that was kind of
Everyone
me
locked
for
in.
sure. So
Jordan, that's probably the moment you locked out.
My internet went out, actually. My internet cut out when that was happening, and then I decided not to lock it out. So that's Xbox. That was the biggest event of
Yeah,
this whole summer season.
that one really felt like
Yeah.
E3. That felt like an E3 presentation.
The only thing that may, I think, compete if this Nintendo Direct that has not happened yet
Yes.
as of we're filming this, but it is happening sometime in June. That could have some cool stuff.
Yep.
But that's the only thing that may have news on par with Xbox.
yeah, a lot of rumors out there, but it's not worth saying what might be real and what's not.
And then there was Ubisoft after that.
Yeah,
They had their two big games that were coming out this year. They got a Star Wars Outlaws, open world Star Wars game from the Division people, I believe.
We got a lot
Entertainment.
of screen time on that one. Yep.
Yeah.
And
with
Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed Shadows coming
Sky.
out
out
this
to Yahtzee.
November, coming out on iOS devices.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Mm.
I Ubisoft is such a weird. I know Ubisoft does high quality work.
Sometimes.
They can do it. Is what I'm saying. And Star Wars Outlaws and Assassin's Creed, I went in with expectations subdued maybe, and I kind of walked away impressed.
Okay.
I'm definitely the Star Wars Outlaws looks to be that. Remember that the 1313 game,
Yes.
that
yeah.
action adventure game,
The
that
spiritual
never-
successor to
Yeah,
that.
it looks like something it's actually realized.
It's open world. They had some people able to play it, and the demo didn't include the open world sections, which
Okay.
everyone was kind of.
I mean,
Oh, yeah,
it comes out in
about
August,
why-
so
yeah.
it better be ready.
yeah. They're like, this whole open world thing is the most intriguing thing because there haven't been that many Star Wars games
Right.
like that, and that's not what they actually let people play. It was
Right.
like, here,
And
play these
that, I mean,
segments.
say we about Ubisoft, they do make open world games.
Right.
Right. That's the kind of
Yeah.
their thing.
there might
now,
be a
you know?
map, and there might be check
Yeah,
marks and
towers to
towers,
climb.
and
Might
be
so,
towers.
yep.
Yeah.
And the Assassin's Creed game, I gotta admit, Shadows is probably the most interested I've been in Assassin's Creed in a really long time.
Exactly, because of this guy right here.
Shout out to Yasuke.
Shout out to Yasuke, you idiots.
What else? Yeah, I didn't know there would be like a second character to take missions in like this. Maybe I was.
Yeah, I like
they're
the
kind of splitting
split.
it's kind of splitting the difference
Yeah,
between.
Yeah.
I think that-
stealthy and assassination.
she plays
stuff.
more. I think like the throwback, kind of more stealthy
Yeah,
originals,
yeah.
and he's more like these kind of new ones that are
That
like
more action,
more
oriented,
Souls-ish in their kind of
Yeah,
really
yeah.
hitbox-driven combat. So that's a cool way to have both.
There's a cool scene where she was like swimming in a lake and then used the reed to breathe,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
it like turned black and white when she jumped out and assassinated the guy. I was like, all right, some style
Yeah,
in
some
here.
cool.
It's set during the Shogun, the Warring States period.
Yeah,
as seen
yeah.
in FX's Shogun, streaming now.
It's the most popular theme
Yeah.
going right now. So yeah, that looked pretty good.
So Ubisoft's got games, and I mean, my game of the year right now is probably still Prince of Persia: The Forgotten.
Yeah.
I forgot the damn
and you're not
subtitle.
doing And everyone else
of
forgot
my
to buy
favorite.
it.
That game is great. I forgot the Lost Crown.
The Lost Crown.
Because there was one called The Forgotten Sands. That was an old
Yes,
Prince of Persia
yes.
game. The Lost Crown. That's a great game. We review of it. They're
And
adding
there is
DLC.
DLC,
They're adding
yes.
DLC
Not
this
to be
year.
confused with the other Prince of Persia game that also came out.
Yes, the Rogue Prince of Persia,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is a roguelite. And not to be confused with their remake
of
Prince
Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, the
Time,
2003 game.
coming out in 2026 now,
Yeah.
after they rebooted it again.
A couple smaller things there, but yeah,
23.
those are their high. They showed some more stuff for X Defiant, which I've been playing
Okay.
a good amount of. It's
yeah,
like,
I guess it's
I don't really like Call of Duty. I didn't like grind. I'm a competitive multiplayer guy, but Call of Duty is not one of the things I
Yeah.
grinded for some reason. Maybe it's the character abilities.
No, I think that's the noxious politics. You're too good of a person to get into Call of
maybe.
Duty.
Maybe
Oh, don't give him that
maybe
much
that's what it is, yeah.
Tom Clancy, that's about right. That's
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the neocon I can gel
Just
with.
the baseline.
Yeah, not Oliver
Yeah,
North.
it's just kind of fun to play aimlessly. It's free. You grind. I don't know.
It's
So there's
pretty.
gonna be more.
It's finding an audience on consoles apparently.
Yeah, it's been pretty popular. So I'm curious to see if that falls off or what when Black Ops 6 comes out, or people are just kind of looking for something else to play right
Yeah.
now, whatever it is. But
So that's the highlights, I think. Do we feel satisfied with this? Do these all together make up an E3? Does it fill the hole?
I think with the big assist from Xbox, yes, I think.
Yeah.
I
I
think so.
think I agree. Yeah, and again, we don't even have Nintendo yet.
Yeah, we'll see
so
what Nintendo
that's
says.
also
It's a little
huge.
weird how spaced out it is. Like normally
Yeah.
we'd have a bit more of a condensed sort
And
of.
I think Xbox needed this
Yes.
shot in the arm very badly. I mean, there's still like we said, there's still a cloud hanging over their release schedule.
And half the things, even regardless of when they come out, even the ones about half the ones we are excited for are still like, I want
yeah.
that to be good, but will it be good?
Yeah,
That's kind of
and they're a year off or
Yeah.
some. So and who knows what will make the jump to other consoles. Doom right out the gate
Right.
was for the PS5. We know Microsoft's interested in publishing elsewhere, and
Yeah.
now we know that Sony is also interested in publishing elsewhere. Even if it's through that Lego umbrella,
Right.
you know, the Lego
logo.
veil.
Yep.
So who knows? Maybe we're on a new horizon.
All we can do is see. All we can do is watch and create content that you can consume on PCMag.com. We'll keep checking out games throughout the year as these come out, and we'll have more to say about them.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, Buzzy, Zach, thanks for joining us. The real game of the show was the Alan Wake 2 DLC. That's how we'll end it.
Just had to get it in there.
Yep. And we'll talk to you next time.